live streaming tonight's meeting. My name is Councillor Lena Messina and I'm the Mayor of the Darebin City Council and the Chairperson of tonight's Planning Committee meeting. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to tonight's meeting, and I declare this meeting open. I also declare that we have quorum this evening. Item number 1, welcome. Darebin City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Wurrung people as the traditional owners and custodians of the land and waters we now call Darebin, and pays respect to their elders past, present and emerging. Council pays respect to all other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities in Darebin. Council recognises and pays tribute to the diverse culture, resilience and the heritage of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We acknowledge the leadership of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and their right to self-determination in the spirit of mutual understanding and respect. The health and safety and well-being of the community has and will always be the paramount consideration of the Council. Council continues to be guided by the government directives and wants to be able to do the right thing for the health of our community during the COVID-19 pandemic. Whilst councillors are in meeting tonight, in person, the latest advice from the local government Victoria is that the public should not be permitted to attend the meeting, so until this advice changes, we will maintain these arrangements. Councillors, this meeting is being live streamed via the link on the council website, so the public will be able to view the proceedings of the meetings. The meeting is also recorded and will be available on the council website as soon as practical after the meeting. Before we begin tonight, I want to set out my expectation in regards to our behaviour and remind councillors of our obligations under the Code of Conduct. At Darebin, we pride ourselves on being progressive and contemporary council in the interest of demonstrating exemplary leadership. I have high expectations that we will be professional in our conduct throughout the evening and respectful in our debate. Councillors, we have a lot to go through tonight. I expect that you all have any direct questions in relation to me as a chair, and I'll endeavour to make sure that everyone has an opportunity, also make sure that we stick to time. Membership is as listed. Councillor Gaetano Greco is Deputy Mayor, Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Tom Hannon, Councillor Tim Lawrence, Councillor Trent McCarthy, Councillor Susan Newton, Councillor Susan Rennie and Councillor Williams. I'd also like to introduce Sue Wilkinson, the Chief Executive Officer, Rachel Olivier, the General Manager City Sustainability and Strategy, Karen Leader, Manager City Development, Peter Rollis, Coordinator Statutory Planning. Item number 2, apologies. I have no apologies this evening. Item number 3, disclosures of conflict of interest. Councillors, do I have any disclosures of conflict or interest? None noted. Item number 4, consideration of reports. Item number 4, 4.1, application for planning permit D7222018 802 to 820 Plenty Road Reservoir. Councillors, items we have before us, are there any questions of the officers regarding this item? Would you like to speak to the item?
Good evening, councillors, Madam Chair. This item came before Planning Committee previously and it was refused. It is an application for a mixed-use development that was primarily for an aged care facility and retirement village. The decision made by Planning Committee was contrary to the officer's recommendation for support. The permit applicant has appealed the decision and the matter is now listed for hearing at VCAT. This item is being presented to you this evening, given parties to the appeal, the objector and the applicant, have come to an in-principle agreement. The agreement was created before a tribunal member at a compulsory conference, which is a forum of mediation. The applicant has agreed to make additional changes to the development to address concerns that the objector has, which relate to overshadowing, bulk of the development, design concerns. Amongst the changes are additional landscaping treatment and external cladding treatment to the southern interface of the development next to the residential neighbours facing Summerhill Road. The changes agreed to have been incorporated as conditions in the agenda and shown in bold. Councillors, we recommend that Council advise the Tribunal that it has considered the in-principle agreement reached by the parties and supports the proposal subject to the conditions set out in the agenda under the section titled Recommendation. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillors, do we have any questions to the officer? We move to hearing of submissions from the applicant's objectors. There are no submissions on this matter this evening and has been previously advised and considered by the Planning Committee, and applicants and objectors have been afforded the opportunity to speak on the matter. We will now enter into debate. Councillors, I remind you that once the debate has started, there are no further questions. Do I have a motion?
I move the officer's recommendation.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Newton. Councillor Lawrence, would you like to speak to the motion?
Do I have to stand? No, it's planning.
No.
Yes, Mayor Messina, it's very good to have this application come back to us where there's been consultation and mediation and between the objectors and the developer. This site itself has been an eyesore for a long, long time. It's been a long time since there's been actual active use of this site. So it really does fill in a space. And in terms of the setbacks that have been agreed to into the facing the residential part at the area at the back, I think that's shown a lot of respect for the neighbours. And obviously we see other applications that try and exploit sites more. So hopefully this is a realistic application, and it will add to the environment of Summer Hill. We already have aged care in there, a variety of aged care housing, and it is of course a place where people have good services, doctors, as well as shopping just nearby. So it is a place where we want to see this type of application. So I'm supporting the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Newton, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Messina. Really following on from Councillor Lawrence, I do remember this application well, particularly because my own mum lives in a retirement village and she lives on a tram line and she doesn't drive anymore. And so the fact that this development is on a tram line, that it's next to Summer Hill, that there's going to be chemists and facilities within the building at the bottom, for me, this is a really positive development for the area. What I'm really pleased about seeing it come back to us is that it seems like there's been some work done with the person who lives around the corner, and I think the result that we've got here today is better than what we had, so very pleased to support it.
Thank you. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Greco.
Thank you, Mayor Messina. Yeah, I'd like to speak in favour of the recommendation and the motion that's before us. I too remember when this came to council, and I remember rejecting the application, and I'm glad that we have done that, because what has actually occurred since then is that it's opened up a conversation between the developer and the objector, and that conversation has actually then produced an in-principle agreement where the objector has consented to, or the applicant has consented to accommodate some of the issues that the applicant, that the objector has raised. Those issues have been covered by our officers in relation to overlooking and overshadowing. So the point that I'd like to underline here is that because of council rejected the application, and then because it did go to VCAT, that what it shows is that the community can have a say, but even more than that, that then the community's concerns can actually be reflected in the outcomes of the planning decisions that hopefully we'll be making here tonight. So I think it's a really great outcome, because again, it's something that we always look towards, is where the objectors and the applicants can actually come to some accommodation and to some consensus, and which then makes it easier for us here at council, but also it's actually satisfying for the community to show that for them to know that they are being listened to and that their concerns have been incorporated in the final decision. So I support the motion as it stands.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. Councillor Williams, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. I too also would like to support the recommendation that's been brought forward. I also have been a part of the journey in watching this applicant, and the application has formed over the years. It's gone back and forth with so many different designs. I guess in hindsight, it's been odd to see the area where it once was a McDonald's store that I used to go and attend, and then many years later, it's obviously been a vacant area where it's only been dumped rubbish for a number of years now. So it's hugely encouraging to see that the developer and the objector has actually come to the table and had those robust discussions to then all have all parties come to an amicable agreement. And I'd like to actually say a big thank you to those parties that have made those decisions, and those minor changes have actually been made now, which our officers have already read out. I think that's more encouraging, is to actually have two parties come together and have a wonderful outcome is the key here. We don't get enough of this happening, and it'd be nice to actually see more of this in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Are there any further speakers? Councillors, as there is no further debate, I'll put this item to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that motion carried. The Planning Committee has decided to support the Development Council will advise VCAT of its decision. VCAT will decide what the next steps will be, and any interested parties should make contact with VCAT. The next item on the report, Councillors, the next item on the report is item number 4.2, application for planning permit for D672-2019-61 Edward Street Reservoir.
Thank you, Madam Chair and councillors. Like the previous item, this proposal is also at VCAT. In terms of the history, very briefly, Council's planning officers determined to support a medium density development on the site under delegation. The item was not called in by councillors. The proposal incorporated vehicular access to the site from the constructed right-of-way connecting to Ashley Street. That arrangement was required via a request for further information. The applicant then agreed to redesign the project to have that access from the laneway. The objectors to the application have applied to have Council's decision reviewed at VCAT. The main area of concern nominated by the objectors relates to the vehicular access from the right-of-way versus having it from Edward Street. The applicant has decided to revise plans and alter the access from the right-of-way to Edward Street. This is done via substituting plans at VCAT, which is permissible. The revised plans are now the new plans to be considered for decision by VCAT. It is officers' view that the revised plans fall short in a number of areas. Firstly, the proposal is not consistent with the reservoir structure plan. The proposal is not consistent with neighbourhood character. The proposal is not consistent with the provisions of car parking and access under the Darebin Planning Scheme. It is recommended the Council opposes the revised plans and advises the Tribunal accordingly. Thank you, councillors.
Councillors, are there any questions to our officers? Councillor Rennie.
Thank you, Mayor Messina, through you. Has our city designer looked at these plans and the design and facade in particular, and what is the opinion, if they have looked at it, that they've reached?
For you, Madam Chair, our city designer has been involved from the very beginning, so he's involved in a pre-application meeting. It was through the city designer and the planning officer that we encouraged the developer to look at vehicular access from a constructed right-of-way. One, it is not a long section of right-of-way. Two, it is constructed, so there's ease of access from the site to Ashley Street. So in answer to your question, the city designer is aware and certainly has a preference for access to be from the right-of-way versus from Edward Street.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? As there are no further questions, we're going to move to the hearing of submissions from the applicants and the objectors. I understand they're going to be coming in through Zoom. So we have the applicant via Zoom. We have Joseph Indomenico. Joseph, you have 3 minutes to speak. Can you hear
Thank
us?
you.
Great.
I can. Thank you, Mayor Messina and fellow councillors for providing this opportunity to present briefly tonight. My name is Joseph Indomenico from Tract, and I'm here on behalf of Branson Property Group, the permit applicant. Firstly, we would like to express our thanks to the officers who have worked with us to effectively resolve 99% of this application. As the delegate report notes, the application before you tonight relates to an objective VCAT matter. The matter came about following neighbours at the rear of the subject site having some significant concerns about the use of the existing laneway for all car parking and waste collection movements. The application originally sought access from the laneway. However, in recent months, we have worked tirelessly with the objector party to relocate access to the front and secure an outcome through VCAT compulsory conference where everyone is on the same page on the application. Naturally, this is a very unique situation where both the community and in particular the VCAT objector party is united with the permit applicant on what is an appropriate planning outcome for a substantial development site in the activity centre. I'd also note that as part of the VCAT process for amending the plans, we re-notified with all occupants and landowners who were notified originally of the application, and no landowners or occupants expressed concern or registered an objection. The Planning Department has taken the view that vehicle access should be maintained from the rear of the property. Whilst it is technically possible, the laneway is a very unique laneway, and Ms McGowan will talk about that very shortly. If Council maintains the Planning Department's recommendation, the application will proceed to a full VCAT hearing, which will generate substantial legal costs, time delays and uncertainty for all parties involved, including and most importantly, the neighbours at the rear of the subject site. It can all be avoided tonight if the if Council's officer's recommendation is set aside and the application is formally approved as per the VCAT amended plans. Just quickly, with respect to the Planning Department's position, we say there is nothing in the Darabin Planning Scheme that mandates access being taken from the rear of the property. Whilst there are some suggestions that it may be preferred, there's sufficient discretion for Council to accept a varied outcome, like the one before you tonight, where the existing condition clearly requires it. The site is already provided with a crossover to Edward Street. Whilst we need to relocate it, it is already there, and it will not result in a reduction in on-street car parking. A street tree will unfortunately need to be removed. However, there's more than sufficient space to accommodate a replacement tree, and there's sufficient landscaping opportunities in the front setback for canopy trees. We also note that foot traffic is predominantly on the northern side where the activity is, where the commercial activity is, but irrespective of this, the crossover and ramp has been designed to accord all relevant sightline and safety tests.
Thank you,
Thank
Joseph.
you again.
Thank you, Joseph. Now, councillors, we have Nicola McGowan on the Zoom. Thank you, Nicola, who is the objector.
Thank you, councillors, Madam Chair. My name's Nicola McGowan. I'm a town planner. I'm representing the objector parties for 34 Ashley Street, and I represent all the owners and occupiers of units 1 to 8 of Ashley Street, 34 Ashley Street. This property runs east-west to the rear of 61 Edward Street. There's a laneway at the rear of the subject site, and at the southern side of that laneway is 34 Ashley Street. I find it disappointing that the council officer didn't include a copy of plan of subdivision or the title for 34 Ashley Street, which we have provided. I can share that if it's useful. But what you would find is that there are car parking titles that directly abut the laneway at 34 Ashley Street. And because it's a very old plan of subdivision, those car parking titles are actually smaller than your standard car parking title as per clause 5206. So it's already tight parking in these spaces. They rely on that laneway to open doors, to walk onto the laneway to access their cars, etc. So the residents at 34 Ashley Street feel that it's a very dangerous situation to have an extra 96 car movements up and down that laneway a day when there's already issues using that laneway. It's also a matter of the waste trucks we find would be problematic. They would also use that rear access laneway, and we cannot see that there is any possible way that 6 waste truck movements a week can go in and out of that property without trespassing on the property of 34 Ashley Street. It's also the situation where if you had cars coming in and out through the back, they'd have to pull over to let cars through. And again, you get that trespassing situation. My feel is that the council officers are putting a very strong weight on the vehicle crossing policy that exists with Darebin Council. It consistently comes up in applications I have with council where they very much, well, council officers very much stick to if there's a laneway, it must be used. But they forget that it says that it must be used if that rear laneway is available and suitable. As such, we say this laneway is not suitable for an access point for a large development such as this proposed. My clients at 34 Ashley Street think it's a wonderful development. They have no concerns about its bulk, form, character, or any other matter. They think it looks good and they think it's very sympathetic of the surrounding area. It's simply this point of access that is unsatisfactory in this situation.
10 seconds.
And as such, we ask council to acknowledge a unique situation that is before us at 34 Ashley Street and to approve the plans as amended through the VCAT process. Thank you.
Nicola. Thank you, Nicola. Councillors, there's no further submitters or questions. We'll now move to debate. Councillors, I remind you that once the debate has started, we have no further questions. Do I have a motion? You're willing to move the motion? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Greco.
Through you, Mayor Messina, I'd like to move an alternate motion to what the officers recommend, and it's been circulated.
Thank you. Can we have that on the screen? Take a moment to read that. Councillors, my understanding is that this has been circulated earlier today. Is there anybody who has not seen this amendment? Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Greco. Councillor Newton, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Thank you, Mayor Messina. So this is a really interesting one, and I really respect the officers' work on this, and I normally wouldn't put up an alternate motion for this kind of item, but having been on site on Monday, this is quite a unique situation, and it's not one that I've seen before. So the reasons why I'm putting through an alternate motion, which is in support of the application, is because of what it's like. So what I mean by that, and completely acknowledging that this is Edward Street, this is a changing area, this is an area that has a lot of shops on the other side, particularly it's near Reservoir Station. It's somewhere that we do want to be pedestrian friendly, we do want it to be really welcoming. I agree that this is a pretty good development for the area, but when we think about what it means practically to have it at the back, when I was taken around the back, what I expected was a laneway, fences on either side, but what it really, really feels like is the driveway of 34 Ashley Street, and that's acknowledging that it is a road on title, it's a council road, but it feels like a driveway. So in practice, at 34 Ashley Street at the back, what you've got is you've got apartments, their balconies are at the front there, their cars are parked there, and then that's this laneway, but in practice it really, really, really feels like a driveway. So for me, when you compare that to putting it at the front, what's really, really interesting and unusual about this one is that the residents at 34 Ashley Street are quite happy with that solution to have it at the front. I spoke with 3 residents on Monday. They all said they didn't want it at the back, similar to what Nicola was saying. So for me, yeah, even though in a normal situation I would be with the officers on this one, this is one where the developers want a particular outcome. From what I can see, the community wants a particular outcome. So with this being quite a unique situation where the back really just feels like the driveway of 34 Ashley Street, for me, that is good enough reason to have this one at the front. And I think overall it's a good development for the area, and I'm looking forward to seeing it go ahead if it's supported tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. Councillor Greco, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Messina. Yes, look, I'll be speaking and supporting the motion that's been put forward by Councillor Newton, very much for the reasons that Councillor Newton has stated. I'll just add that it's not very often that we see that a developer and an objector and that the council is on the other side of the fence. It's really unusual. In the 12 years that I've been on council, I don't think I've come across a situation like that. It's usually the council is either on the side of the developer or on the side of the objectors. Just in relation to the substance of this issue, is that yes, it is a better planning outcome to have access from the rear, but as our policy states, it's not written in stone. You have to look at the particular situation. And I too, like Councillor Newton, have visited the site. And actually, when I visited the site, I actually, when I was walking to try and find the lane, I didn't even know it was a lane. I actually walked completely past it because of the way that it's been, the way that the lane is, as Councillor Newton has described, and also as described by both the developer and the objectors. So it's a peculiar situation. Also, I think what needs to be pointed out is that there won't be any loss in car space in the front because we're just shifting the crossway to another end, and so there'll still be 2 cars will still be able to park in the front, so it doesn't upset the shopping strip, and also that in terms of a urban development face, there's enough room there to maintain enough vegetation there in the front. So I commend the motion that's been put forward by Councillor Newton, and I think that it's an outcome that satisfies the objector and the developer, and I think in this particular case, the council can make a special exclusion to have the access from the front rather than from the rear.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. Do we have any further speakers? Councillor Rennie.
Thank you. I'm actually going to speak against this motion, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I understand that this is the preferred option of both the applicant and the objectors. However, as a council, we have done an enormous amount of work trying to improve design quality. We've employed a city designer, and we ask our experts in the organisation, our planning team, to carefully consider planning outcomes, not just for tomorrow, but for 50 years' time. There are some clear reasons why access from the rear is preferred, and they include the fact that Edward Street is a principal pedestrian part of the network, and that removing cars going in and out of driveways on Edward Street actually increases community safety, not only for the residents of this property, but for all people who use that stretch of road. We also get a better design outcome in terms of the front facade of the building and the sense of address and the way that building presents to the street. And this is also something that community members have told us they care about. We've heard numerous times that community cares about the look and feel of developments that go up in the street, and obviously as a development on a fairly major road, this one will be visible to the community, and so I think we should give that some weight. And I think that in making planning decisions, we have to make decisions that we believe set up and support planning directions that we've said are important in relation to quality and in relation to design. If we fail at the first test of our good design guidelines for medium density development, by caving in favour of a solution that is preferred but not recommended, what does that say about the value we place on those good design guidelines? And so on that basis, I will not be supporting this motion and would flag that if this motion is unsuccessful, I would move the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Are there any further speakers? Councillors, there's no further debate. I'll put this item to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Note that Councillor Newton, Lawrence, Greco, Messina, Williams and Dimitriadis voted for, and against was Councillor Rennie, Hannan and McCarthy. I declare that motion carried.
Actually abstained. Is it possible to abstain? I did not vote.
Oh, apologies. Noted. Can we change that? Councillor Hannan has abstained. The Planning Committee has decided to support the revised plan subject to conditions. Council will advise VCAT of its decision. VCAT will decide what the next steps will be. Any interested parties should make contact with VCAT. councillors. Now we move over to item number 5, other business. Item number 5.1, general planning information scheduled for VCAT applications. Councillors, is there a motion for the recommendation?
Happy to move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Moved by Councillor McCarthy, seconded by Councillor Rennie. Would you like to speak to the motion?
No.
All those, let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? That item is carried. Item number 6, consideration of reports considered confidential. Councillors, as there's no confidential reports to consider, I would like to declare that the meeting is closed at 7:02 p.m. Thank you very much and good evening.